This is my 2005 F250 with the infamous 6-liter Powerstroke engine. Now, I bought it with 230,000 miles on it. Not great. Does that make me an idiot? Probably. But to find out, we're taking it to a local diesel shop to take a look. Alright, so while we're on the way there, let's talk about a few aspects of this vehicle. So first off, when I bought it, I only got it for $5,900. So even if I get pretty screwed showing up to this this shop, I think I got a little wiggle room before it actually is not worth it. Why did I buy it? Well, I wanted to start a side business where I buy some auction cars and then I flip them. That's actually why this channel exists in the first place. However, your first question might be, if you're just going to tow one car at a time from the auction, why do you need a turbo diesel vehicle? And the answer to that is simple: I do not. However, I do love the sound of turbos, and it turns out diesel engines make a pretty sweet noise. So here we are. So the next thing we should probably discuss is what I've done to it. So this vehicle has 230,000 miles, as I said before, 232 actually, as I looked down. So what's the first thing that you do when you see an engine with 230,000 miles, a turbo diesel at that? Well, I go on Craigslist and I pick up an SCT tuner and throw a tune on it. Now, is that a bad idea? Absolutely. But again, here we are. This is probably going to bite me in the butt really bad, but that's a risk I'm willing to take because it's really fast now and makes cool turbo noises. What more can you ask for? Now, the other modifications are all vanity. So I spent like $500 or something. I replaced the front bumper. That was a pain in the ass, by the way. I painted it. I replaced the headlights. Just as an aside, the headlights that come with this are like sealed halogen lamps that put out like a single lumen. Why are they making that in 2020? Right? Or even in 2005? That makes no sense. Legitimately, like, you are better off lighting a candle and then putting that behind a piece of plastic and riding down the road, because that's the same amount of light that's coming out of them. So I replaced that with these cool looking and way more functional LED lamps and housings, and it's been fantastic since then. However, all those other modifications are all vanity, right? So that's not going to help me in terms of reliability, but it does make it look a lot more modern and looks a lot better going down the road. So the next thing is, what kind of spurred me to go to the diesel mechanic? And that is, I noticed that there was a ton of oil just slathered all over the charge pipe. And I should have a video up showing you what I'm talking about, but it is a tremendous amount of oil. And obviously, that's not what you want to see. So the first thing I did is I Googled what could be causing this problem. And some of them actually seemed really straightforward, like, the charge pipe tube is just kind of like it's like a plastic elbow thing or whatever, and they crack, and then, some of the oil, which for some reason I guess is inside of that pressurized air, can come out, whatever. So I figured that's a cheap fix, no problem. Let's just go to the diesel place and have them look it over, so I can know if there's any other things, hopefully not too bad, that I can get taken care of, and that's kind of why we're on the way. So my dad has been a mechanic his entire life, and when I called him up saying, "Pop, I think I'm going to buy a truck for this side business that I want to do," and we were kind of talking about some options and everything, and then I mentioned, hey, there's this turbo diesel that I'm looking at, and he goes, I don't know if you need a turbo diesel vehicle to tow one car at a time or whatever. So obviously I brushed that off as unfair criticism to what I'm trying to do, and then moved forward by then telling him it's actually the 6-liter. Now, I didn't know at the time, but it turns out that the 6-liter Powerstroke is one of the worst engines they've ever made, and that obviously did not bode well for me. But I did kind of come to find out, if you find one that's bulletproofed and has certain things done to it, supposedly it's just as reliable as just about any other diesel engine. So my theory is, hopefully that's true, especially since I got that tune on it. But moreover, if it is about as average as the rest of them, then let's hope this bill at the shop doesn't look too bad. Dude, I've been at this light for like 10 minutes. How am I still at this light? All right, so I know I'm playing it up as if we were on the way to get the check done, but actually it's already done. I already have the results. And, well, they're not good. So again, I went in just wanting them to look at this charge pipe thing initially. I figured, okay, maybe they can replace the elbow, maybe they can fix a couple things, you know, the here and there kind of stuff. Because I knew it had like a minor oil drip, just a couple drips, you know, if you let it sit for a day or two, whatever. I can deal with that, right? Oil pan gaskets go bad, it happens, not the end of the world. Turns out it's significantly worse than that. Now, this truck has already been bulletproof. And that was one of the only reasons why I bought it. It was fully bulletproof, the heads were machined, the whole 9 yards, right? I think it cost like $6 or something when it was initially done. So that kind of was boosting my confidence going into this whole process. It turns out that some kind of thermostat thing has probably failed, resulting in the charge pipe cooling. But what's worse is that a number of gaskets all across the thing, including like I think the front main seal or something, is not looking too hot. Or at least that's what they suggested I should do. Now, how much of that is actually needed? It's really hard for me to say. I mean, I don't know a whole lot about diesels. I've grown up my entire life thinking about cars 90% of every single day, but diesels were not one of them. The one thing I can tell you is this. They also said that they tested the injectors and one of them was failing at certain RPM ranges or something along those lines. That's probably accurate, but the one thing that was not accurate was what they quoted me the price of an injector was. So it said $360. So I said, is that the price of all the injectors? And they said, just one. Alarm bells are going off. That sounds absurd because injectors on a gas car are like, you know, $50. Now it turns out it is true that injectors on diesel vehicles are wildly expensive, like comically so. But what is not true is that it's not $360. You can go online and I'm seeing them for like $160. So I'm already a little bit hesitant on the reality of the number that I'm going to give you, which is $7,000-ish. I should have a thing on the screen showing the actual number. I'm just going off of my memory. Would it have been behoove me to bring the sheet with me? Of course. But again, I'm an idiot, and this is where we stand. So I did end up thinking over and talking with them a little bit and kind of going over the ones that the most likely scenario is, because they also suggested that I should redo the heads and have them re-studded, which, if you ask me, I think is ridiculous because I have looked under the vehicle. I have looked and the heads look fine. I'm not seeing anything coming from them, but it is coming from, it's difficult to look in that area, honestly. I would actually really love if anybody watching this has a lot of, you know, turbo diesel Powerstroke experience to maybe chime in with this, because again, they said that this thermostat is probably one of the most likely things, because apparently it's around that area and the oil can go past it when it fails, and then it kind of spurts out or something onto that charge pipe. And he said that's one of the most likely scenarios, but also the heads, but also all these different gaskets, including the oil pan, and then obviously this injector failure thing. They redid it with just the most likely things, and it came out to like 1900 or something. That actually doesn't seem that bad, being that there's not really a whole lot of oil, but there is a pretty substantial amount of like water probably coming from the radiator, because I actually forgot to mention this. Apparently it was like a couple gallons low on radiator fluid, which is strange because the oil temperature is perfect, and like absolutely fantastic. All the temperatures are great, but apparently we were low on radiator fluid, so they topped it back off. But what's interesting is I never noticed huge amounts of water coming out until they topped it off, which I guess would make sense. I'm at a crossroads. How much money do I want to put into this truck to continue enjoying the turbo diesel noises, which are fantastic? And I think the answer is probably more than I should spend, if we're being realistic about it. Which brings me into my next category. I want to talk about this truck a little bit. You know, it's from 2005, and it's definitely fair to say it drives like something from 2005, but there are some things I'd like to discuss. So first off, comfort. It's not comfortable. I mean, I honestly thought that one of the biggest upsides of this truck would be the comfort. I would have thought, I mean, admittedly, this is the, you know, the tradesman level or whatever they call their base model. I mean, I might have fooled you with how it looks in the front, but that's only because I changed all that and did painting and all that. No, it was the base trim that people will buy a fleet of 50 of. You know, it's just the cheapest version that gets this engine and powertrain, right? I mean, it rides better than like a sports car, but you're feeling most of the bumps. You're not really absorbing all that much. I don't know. I wouldn't call it a characteristic, but kind of something that falls in line with the rest of the driving experience, which is kind of interesting. It's not as floaty as I would have thought, because I've driven a lot of trucks. You know, my dad has had trucks his whole life, basically. And they all feel like a lot more floaty than this. And this one doesn't. So I was pretty interested about that particular aspect, but it is really enjoyable to drive. You know, overall, even though it might not be as comfortable as a Rolls Royce, it is an enjoyable experience. You know, you're way up high, and this is the first truck I've ever owned, and I went straight to the, you know, the 250, 2500, like that realm, the kind of Super Duty level, and being up this high is fantastic. Now I get why people do it. You feel like you're the king of the road. It's wonderful. It doesn't get that great gas mileage, you know, like 15 miles a gallon or whatever if you're doing 65 on the highway, isn't fantastic. I mean, for how much, you know, torque and power it can produce, that's actually pretty decent, but that's really not even a big factor, obviously, because it's not like you buy something like this for fuel economy, but something to mention, I suppose. Some of the other aspects are this wheel is always slightly to the left. I know this is an easy fix. I'm a very lazy man. It is fun to drive. I enjoy it. I also love how like utilitarian it is, because then it doesn't make me that scared to like use it as a work truck. You know, like you can get in here when you're wet. You can get in here when you're dirty. And it almost feels like that's the purpose. Like that's what you're using it for. You don't have to worry about that stuff. You're getting into a bench seat, for God's sakes. I do like this thing. I want it to continue to be my vehicle. I am hoping that I can sort out these issues for a reasonable price, because if I can, this thing is going to be so much fun. I can already I love the noises it makes. Like, oh baby, yeah, that's fantastic. This is great. I have a lot of different vehicles, and I've owned, you know, like right now I own a Prius, a GT350, this truck, and a Hayabusa, and it's definitely a pretty interesting dichotomy of vehicles, and this was the only vehicle I was driving for the first 3 weeks that I bought it. It's just it's so unique. It's its own thing, and I really enjoy it. But for $7,000 more than I paid for the entire vehicle, I don't think so. But again, they were factoring stuff that was already done. Does it need to be done again? Maybe. I actually don't know that much about these trucks, but being that they were talking about the heads leaking and I don't see it, maybe not. And if that's not the case, then the price comes down significantly. And now we're talking about something that I can definitely deal with, no problem. So if you have any thoughts on whether or not this is a complete waste of time and an utter, you know, lighting cash on fire kind of situation, please let me know. But if you want to see this truck get saved just like I do, I'd like some people to give me the green light, or at least just reassure my own stupidity, because this thing is fantastic. But I don't know, this is Austin's Autos, where I talk about vehicles that I either own or I'm going to sell. And it's been another one. Have a good day.